Good evening, Jonathan. This is my response to your sort of disagreement on my post. Um, I really appreciate the disagreement. This particular week, I mean, I've learned a lot more. Not to no discredit to Dr. Meredith, but I've learned a lot more from my fellow students than I have from the readings or anything else. Just sort of in consideration of this issue. I mean, listening to the responses I've listened to and things like that, I've sort of already changed my opinion from. I mean, I think I made that thing at around 1 a.m. last night. Um, so from 1 a.m. last night to now 8:14 p.m. The same day, I've already kind of changed my opinion around because what I hadn't considered when I made my initial response, whereas as you what you disagreed with the more stability in the Middle East due to Jimmy Carter, I think there would have been more stability. Still, I mean, I stick by that only because everybody would have been waiting to see what would have been done. But with that said, it would have been a temporary stability. It wouldn't have lasted, as you mentioned in your video. Uh, the volatility of the situation, his failure to understand the roots of the conflict, and you know, and then sort of another point that I've come up with in all the videos is, and what would be the big deal anyway? I mean, so yeah, there's peace in the Middle East, and the U.S. has no military, and the Soviet Union now swoops in, and I don't know, something like drops a nuke on Israel because now it sees itself as the power, and it's gonna beat up the U.S. and it doesn't want to have to deal with this issue once it's the sole world superpower. I don't know, something along those lines. I do totally agree that almost certainly in foreign policy and certainly domestically, definitely domestically, unarguably domestically, Jimmy Carter was a failed president. Um, and I think that his failures in foreign policy were mostly because, as I'm getting from Doreen's video, sort of the point I made there was because of his singular focus on this issue. I mean, not that it's not an important issue. Everybody would love to have peace in the Middle East, but peace between Palestinians and Israelis, but it is just one issue. I mean, there's a million things going on. You've got Iran revolution going on, and now you've got hostages. I mean, was he ever going to focus on that? I mean, you've got Americans being held hostage by radicals in a nation that used to sell you oil and has now completely cut it off. I mean, don't you think this warrants a little bit of attention, or do you just want to sort of, you know, pound, browbeat begging into resolution in the West Bank? I mean, who cares about the West Bank when you've got Americans held hostage and military powers, and you've got Russia going on. You've got the Soviet Union breathing down your neck, and World War III just around the corner. What are you focusing on this issue so hard for? And as you, in your response to in your disagreement, very well said. I mean, he didn't even do that. He bumbled through the Camp David Accords. You know, taking Sadat's side and everything when Egypt shouldn't even really been involved. I mean, I understand that he saw it as a step like Egypt Israeli peace, and then on, and then that leads to Israeli Palestinian peace and peace throughout the region. But even the reading indicates that it wasn't really getting there. I mean, none of the Arabs were really signed on. Everybody was just kind of looking at Israel like, we don't like Israel. We're not going to do anything. Basically, just leave us alone. But Jimmy Carter, for some reason, thought that he had to do that. This was going to define him as a person for the rest of forever. And so then the Camp David Accords are seen as a success. But what's a success when everything else is a failure? It's like for Dr. Meredith's class, if I got a 9.9 on my week one essay or my first essay, and then I just don't submit anything else. I don't think my grade in the class is going to hold up real well if that's the case. So thanks for your disagreement. I learned a lot this week, and see you in future weeks.